All right, we are good to go, Brent.
Perfect. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for taking the time to chat with us for 30 minutes today and learn a little bit more about CIP drips related to technology. When you think about technology, there are a number of challenges that come along with it, whether they're risks from a cybersecurity perspective or introducing new technology into our environments, into our compliance programs, or security related devices that come into play. We're going to cover some of the risks today. Next slide, Nick. Yeah, thank you. Go back and kind of confirm what CIP Drip is and what we talked about in the previous two sessions. We covered people and process. We'll cover those briefly. And then we'll really focus on technology, really looking at some of the risks that we're seeing with newly implemented technology related to IBRs and inverter-based resources and large loads and the challenges that are coming there. And then we'll discuss some of the potential monitoring capabilities that you can bring to bear from a technology perspective, as well as GRC concepts. And we'll recap all the CIP drips at the end of it. So next slide. So when you think about CIP drips, we've talked about the concept of building a NERC compliance program as your home. And as we know, any home, as it ages, requires repairs, requires maintenance, requires upkeep, and no different than our CIP compliance programs. Annual maintenance or less frequent enhancements or overhauls are required. Think about the changes that happen within our environment. The standards change, they update. Your processes require changes. Your people may come and go. And we struggle, I think, as an industry to move to new technology or adopt new technology, because cost associated with that. We have embedded processes that rely, embedded systems that rely on legacy equipment, legacy technology. And we're hesitant as an industry to move the needle forward to gather new or incorporate new technology into our environments. But when you think about your NERC CIP house today, ask yourself the question: what technology have you deployed to help manage that house day in and day out? There was an example of not using the tools at your disposal that I heard a couple of weeks ago from a friend of ours. There was a story about a burglary attempt on a house, and this person had a fully functional alarm system, cameras, and for whatever reason they decided not to engage the security system one evening, and 2 of their vehicles were stolen as a result of that. And so if you're not using your technology at its full disposal, you run risks there. Are the tools that you've developed, deployed, and are maintaining, are they running as you expect? And if they're not, why not, right? You need to ask yourself these types of questions, and that can, again, lead back to people and process as well. But over time, our NERC CIP house needs maintenance and upkeep, and certainly the technology that we would apply to our compliance programs can help identify those drips or those leaks that happen, and then we can shore those things up and resolve those before they become self-report issues, as an example. Why this matters? Next slide. Yeah, why this matters to us? Again, you look at your friendly NERC CIP auditor here, whether that's an internal audit or you're dealing with a region, FERC, or NERC. They're there to help identify these challenges and issues that you may be blind to. In addition, they're looking for, when the auditors come calling these days, they're asking about internal controls. What technology have you deployed? Are you using proactive methods? Are you using discovery-based tools? Are you using issue resolution tools so that you're identifying in real time or near real time any issues that would potentially cause you risk? And then do you have tools in place to help resolve those risks? Next slide. So when you think about the 3 pillars that we've really focused on over the last several months, people being the first one, educating our people, making sure we've got the right people working on the compliance and security obligations that we have in front of us, and then you pivot that over to process. What do your processes look like today? Are your processes up to snuff with the latest versions of the NERC CIP standards? You know, there's a lot of, recently FERC approved the virtualization standards, and that's going to change the game, how we look at things like a baseline information from a cybersecurity baseline perspective or configuration baseline perspective. All the while, the people and process we've put in place rely on a set of tools, your tech stack, and that's what I'm going to refer to it as for the rest of the half hour here, is the tech stack that you've established. And all three of these pillars should allow you to focus on both the reliability of your system and security of your system and your environment. So I wanted to introduce a couple technology challenges that we've kind of recognized over the last several months, and use these as kind of our jumping off point when we talk about risks to your organization, risks to your compliance culture, risks to security and reliability. Next slide. Oh boy, let's talk about inverter-based resources. And there's so many things that are coming on that are changing the way we've deployed our compliance and security programs over the years. You think about the onset of the inverter-based resources. Since 2015, it's said that we've deployed millions of inverter-based resources. Now that may be not at utility scale; those may be distributed energy resources, but nonetheless, they all have a potential impact on the grid. NERC put out an alert last year, a level 3 alert, saying to transmission owners and generation operators, to entirely the entire NERC fleet, and said, hey, we see some potential risks with these IBR, these inverter-based resources being deployed at scale. We see some challenges with that. And those challenges come in a couple of different ways. When you think about large fleets of networked software-controlled inverters that are managed remotely and sometimes in aggregate, they've basically expanded the attack surface from not only a distributed energy resource, but when we're talking, solar arrays that are at utility scale. It's said that we've deployed again over millions of these, whether they're BESS, they're battery energy storage systems, or they're solar arrays themselves with inverters built in. We've deployed these at almost every utility I can think of. And the challenge that comes with those is, where are we getting the elements, the components, the chipsets, the controllers that come along with these IBRs? And that's just one area of risk. Another area of risk is the large loads. You are all likely seeing demand requests come in from a generation capacity perspective for data centers and all the different types of large loads that are coming. We were at a conference in Austin, Texas, at a TRE conference a few months ago, and they were talking about how the large load capacity that's coming online in the Austin area is set to double their demand within the next 3 to 4 years. And are we prepared to handle that? Not only from a practical perspective on being a reliable entity that we're serving our customers appropriately, can we maintain that? But what are the cyber risks associated with deploying large loads and the growth that we're seeing in both these sectors? Next slide. So to make things even more clear and to highlight the risks related to inverter-based resources, we relied on this report from Strider. Strider is Nick, what would you consider Strider? They're a
threat intelligence company. Global threat intelligence.
Global Threat Intelligence Agency did a great report, put a great report together on inverter-based resources, and specifically the chipsets and some of the components where they're actually developed and installed in these devices. And I think we have a link to the Strider report, but that's the name of it. If you just search Strider in broad daylight, you'll come up with this report. And it is eye-opening to see the risks that we've exposed ourselves to as an industry in North America. They noted that the research in this paper noted that there's more than 5,400 megawatts in 22 states that are leveraging risky PRC equipment with a combined capacity of that 5,400 megawatts. That's a big swath, or a broad swath, and that's not considering the distributed energy resources that we know have been deployed at scale in a significant number of states around our country. The research suggests that the People's Liberation Army, so the People's Republic of China, the Army, and the National Defense University show sustained efforts to identify vulnerabilities and develop methods to disrupt the U.S. power grid. We've known that for years, and now we're basically plugging and playing in the IBR space because we're so hungry for generation capacity. We've instituted these things. And in this report, they talk about how 86% of the U.S. utilities surveyed in this report have installed and rely on risky components from People's Republic of China suppliers. So there's significant risk here. I would definitely encourage you to go out and read this report. Really, it potentially causes a significant risk. And you look at things like Volt Typhoon from 2023, where they've seen Volt Typhoon in electric utilities in our space, where it's lain dormant for over 300 days. Dragos has come out and said that, hey, we've seen these things actively inside our network environments. So, not all is lost, right? There's an opportunity here. Every time, there's a risk identified, there are opportunities to resolve these risks. And when we think about how you gain insight into the potential backdoors that are built in within these systems and the obvious vulnerabilities when we're deploying these inverter-based resources at scale, not just thinking about the 5,400 megawatts, but I'm thinking more broadly across everything we've deployed. You can look at things like internal network security monitoring, right? That's NERC's and FERC's answer to say, we don't really have any east-west traffic visibility on these networks because we haven't required it as an industry. And certainly CIP 15 will give us insight and allow people to deploy tools and technology that's going to help keep them aware of the things that are going on and that potential east-west traffic and any malformed traffic that's flowing east and west. So as an industry, we need to understand our internal networks better than we do today. And I know that you talk to network guys and utilities, and they're like, my network's robust. It's safe. We have good security controls and good security hygiene and practice that we use when we deploy systems internally. But did we really look at risk when we're applying it against that lens of the inverter-based resources or large loads that are coming on? And my answer often is probably not. And so when you look at tools that are out there, there are a number of tools that can help from an INSM perspective. You look at Dragos, they have a tool set, Nozomi, Clarity, and there are a bunch of others that can offer this, whether it's Cisco or Fortinet. There's a variety of tools that can give you the ability and visibility that you need to see if anything is happening and to keep track of that data in near real time. Some of the challenges that are there. One of the other challenges that we seem to brought to bear, and we've realized this ourselves as NovaSync, is the deepfake movement. And so, Nick, I'll turn it over to you to talk about deepfakes.
Yeah. So, reason we're talking about this is, and relates to technology, is that everything's interconnected. You got people, process, technology, but hackers are taking advantage of every vulnerability they can see, every angle they can grab. So this theory of deepfake, we actually experienced it firsthand, where we're growing, and we interviewed a bunch of folks, and we had this person that looked like they were from Dallas, Texas. They had a resume, they have a LinkedIn profile, everything fit the bill. We jump on the phone, Brent and I are interviewing this person, and first thing that was off was the face was stretched. So literally the camera or the video screen was stretched horizontally just enough to realize something was super bizarre with that situation. So as we continued to ask this person questions, we started to notice, hey, this person's clearly reading from a script, ChatGPT or something else. It was also weird because they were agreeing to almost everything that we said. So once we kind of caught on to that pretty early, we had a little fun with the activity. So we started to make up a fake set of compliance standards and ask questions about it, for which the candidate responded happily, going in detail about how knowledgeable they were about the fake set of standards we made up. And, for us, it's kind of, silly moment, easy to catch, but we hung up the phone and we started to realize that this is happening at every utility and every company across the country, if not the world, right now. This is a threat that wasn't as apparent or available as it is today, and it will only get worse from here on. We talked in our last CIP Drip webinar about this theory where laptop farms being set up where there's US-based employees that are proxied between the US-based employer, but then they're sending all of their data and traffic to another country in exchange for payment or other types of services. So this is happening. There's people who have been caught in this process. This is happening at a large scale. So we're facing new threats and vulnerabilities that we haven't seen at this scale before. This brings me to why, when you're paying attention to technology, this is, again, back to the triad of people, process, technology. Identities are going to be, if not already, one of the most important parts of our future to protect. When you think of why is that? Well, there's a movement from where all of the activity and focus from a hacker was on the endpoint, was on the device itself. Well, they realized that there's other ways to get into infrastructure and you don't need to be on the device. You can manipulate an identity. So thinking about where we are today, we're typically dealing with humans' identity, human logins and access credentials for Microsoft and so on. Well, this is going to change also. Not only do we have service accounts operating at scale, but now we're bringing in this whole new world of AI and agents will have authorization and access controls of what it can and what it cannot do. And then multiply that by the scale of what we're about to see, we're going to have a whole new set of threats that we're facing. Tie the scene even further. We recently had the agency, CISA agency, government agency that's focused on cybersecurity, had a contractor literally expose credentials on a public GitHub repo. So stuff like this that's happening is it's because the technologies are changing so fast that we have to be aware of. With the technology change, there will also be nefarious actors that take advantage of these technology vulnerabilities, which is why it's important to pay attention to why we are talking about technologies as kind of the new wave here to protect ourselves against these types of threats.
And it's such a good point, Nick. You think about how in the utility space, how we've done business, how we've deployed and developed our compliance programs over the years. The way we've done it for the last 15 years is not the way we're going to be able to do it going forward. There's going to have to be a shift because the risks are expanding so quickly and so dramatically that the standards themselves aren't able to keep up. And so we're always going to be playing catch up from a standards perspective. So you think about what we do from an identity perspective at NovaSync. We have the ability to deliver our clients a daily account check where we're taking data and automatically comparing that against the user accounts that are stood up on specific devices and comparing that against authorization records, thereby helping people validate the identity of the human users or service accounts that are in play. So that's something that we've kind of taken the security practitioner's approach to identifying and leveraging automation, leveraging the information that you have at your disposal based on the tools that are deployed in your organization.
Yep, and my takeaway for that too is although identity is not, or access management is not in the CMEP for this year, it's one of the biggest risk items in the entire cybersecurity industry, trying to think about what's the future of attacks that are coming in through identity theft and identity manipulation.
Yeah. Awesome. So are you in the market for a used car? Because this gentleman would certainly be happy to help you. No, he's our CIP technology specialist, and you can see from just his look, he's definitely an expert. So the message here is to choose your experts wisely. Work with, we talk about when we're buying and deploying new technology, often we look at those purchases as transactional, right? Hey, I'm going to buy something from you. It's going to work out of the box, and I don't expect to talk to you. But for opportunities where I may need some help in configuring or managing the tool, that idea or concept has to shift away from we're just making transactional purchases to we're developing relationships with true security experts and people that practice in our space that know and understand our business. So our message is to focus on the relationships with those vendors who are committed to partnering with you and your organization, because these risks are emerging more rapidly than the standards are iterating and changing. As you know, it's a long process to develop and refine and then deploy a new standard. INSM still in process, as an example, right? It took us about 7 years to even get multi-factor authentication in as a required element of NERC CIP standards. So the lag that we're seeing is not conducive to ensuring security at the endpoints and holistically for our organization. Be careful of when you buy things. Make sure you understand your buying process internally, and you understand exactly what you need. You have a specific set of scoped work that you need this vendor to work with you on. That way they can deliver what you expect, and you can manage and monitor what you're expecting, what you're getting from that expectation. Talk to your vendors. Don't focus on the transactional nature of the business, but who they are as vendors and what they're kind of all about. That will help you ensure that you're really getting true NERC expertise when you're prepared to deploy technology. Next slide.
And I'll just add a note to that too. Brent, we've been in this industry for almost 20 years or so on many sides of the fence, the regulator side, vendor side. We have team members on the utility side. So we kind of know all the angles of how these conversations work. And I can't stress enough that about not making your vendor relationships transactional. And what I mean by that is more of vendors need to understand the pulse of their customers at scale individually so they can make better products and services. So the more that you can communicate with your vendors and build that relationship and find out what each other's needs are, it'll feel less transactional when you go to market or when you're having a problem where you're not facing it on a cold start conversation. So just please keep that in mind as you're kind of continuing your technology adventures, is to understand that vendors are a big part of this complex machine that we're operating. And the more informed you can keep them as you're building, the better you're going to see results from.
Perfect. Oh, here we go. There's Neo. Demand expertise, right? We want people that are fluent in NERC CIP, that not only understand what the standards require and how to accomplish those obligations, how to meet those obligations, but they need to understand the utility industry and how it operates, because it is a different animal altogether, than selling into or being a vendor in a traditional IT space. We've really focused at NovaSync in developing a team of experts that have been in industry, that have lived and breathed it, as Nick mentioned, and that's really should be your focus each and every time you go out to bid for a new technology and are working with vendors. You want expertise. So demand expertise, not only from your internal folks, but from the vendors and partners that you work with.
Yes. And it's a small industry. A lot of us know each other. Everyone knows everyone, it feels like. So the expertise is there. And there's a lot of it. There's a lot of people with a lot of experience here. So yes, demand it. This isn't a nice to have. This is a requirement to work with anyone in this industry, to know the industry very, very well.
Perfect. Oh, here's my favorite slide of the deck. So identifying solutions or tools that work to solve your problems, right? You could hearken this back to the people in the process, right? He's just following the process. So he got his drill out to do some painting because that's what the process dictated he should do. But it also kind of drives the point home about, are you using the right tool to solve the problem? There are so many times we see people using a product that they've either developed internally themselves, or they've deployed it and said, yeah, we can probably get away with using it this way, so making it a Swiss Army knife. And I'm here to tell you, there's no silver bullet with security or compliance. You have to do your homework as an entity to figure out what are the right tools for our organization based on our size, scope, scale, that's going to meet not only the compliance obligation, but help us secure our stuff long term. when you deploy homegrown tools, I've seen this happen so many times. Who's there to maintain it long term? It could be, your buddy Jason, who is a database administrator, and he built this really cool tool for you to use, and he has some SQL expertise. But what happens when Jason wants to retire or move on or not work in that part of the organization? You basically are left with shelfware at that point. And there's many entities that get stuck in this mode because they're not identifying the right tools. It goes back to working with your vendor to make sure we are bringing a tool to bear that's not only going to work in the near term, but will work long term strategically for us. So be really strategic in your tool deployment.
Yep. And I think having a focus on what are these tools for? Well, a lot of times you mentioned Swiss Army knife. We try to use tools that that could potentially solve all of our problems, and then we build and retrofit those tools towards a direction that it was never intended to use. And yes, while that might feel like you're getting a win in the short term, in the long term, you're creating this tech debt headache or exposing extra vulnerabilities, not only from your security point of view, but from your GRC program, your governance, risk, and compliance view, where having the wrong tools for the job could lead to violations, tracking issues, process failures, obviously wasted budget and increased risk because these tools aren't being implemented, managed, monitored the way they were intended to be. So yes, right tools for the right job. Keep your eyes out for that and the focus tight on what the intent is for even using some of these tools.
Last slide for us today, and is we look at Nick mentioned the GRC platform, and a lot of folks we've heard the GRC buzzword. We know what GRC kind of stands for, but do we really use it? Are we really looking at governance? Are we looking at risk? Or are we just doing the C piece, which is just the compliance piece? And my suggestion to any organization at this point, it's time to level up. The buzzword GRC has been around for a long time, and there are a number of GRC solutions out there, but there are very few, if any, other than NovaSync that are developed exclusively for NERC. I mean, that's what we've done. We've grown up in this industry, as Nick mentioned, and this is who we service. We want to work with utilities not only to solve their problems and challenges and issues today and resolve those through automation, connection, dashboards, reports, escalations, notifications, but we want to work with them in the future as these new risks that we've just talked about are emerging, right? The IBRs, the large loads, the constant change and churn of technology, and how our compliance programs are ready to deal with that. Developing and deploying a true GRC solution is at the core of everything that you're going to do or going to need to do as you level up your compliance programs. I think a GRC platform gives you broad visibility, not only compliance programs, but to your security architecture, design, and the implementation of those things. So it's a really important a message that we want to send to our clients. Is like, hey, it's time to level up your compliance programs by getting more involved, leveraging automation, and making your lives a little simpler and gaining visibility that you need on things that are just not there for you today, and the standards may not even address those risks, but we can certainly help. So I'll stop there for any questions. Okay. Well, we really appreciate. Yeah, we really appreciate everyone's attendance today, and we look forward to future webinars where we can talk more about some of the challenges that we're all facing, and go forth and be reliable and secure. Oh, he's no questions, but he was muted. Okay. Well, thank you, Patrick. All right. Well, everyone have a great rest of the day, great rest of the week. Take care.
Thank you.